Okay, picture this. It's a Tuesday evening. You walk into a pharmacy, maybe a big beauty store, just to grab a simple face wash because you ran out. But 10 minutes later, you're just frozen. You're in the middle of the aisle staring at this wall of white bottles. You've got serums, toners, essences, emulsions, and the labels are just shouting chemistry at you, right? Non-comedogenic, liposomal delivery, free radical scavengers. It's just total sensory overload.
So it's analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Pure and simple. And it's intentionally intimidating. You feel like you need a PhD in biochemistry just to wash your face.
That is exactly the point we're tackling today. It's February 5, 2026, and the skincare market has just exploded. But the confusion, I feel like it's actually gotten wider, not smaller. So our mission for this deep dive is to bridge that gap. We're going to take you from that overwhelmed shopper to someone who actually understands the function behind the bottle.
Yeah, we're stripping away all the marketing fluff. We're not really looking at beauty today. We're looking at biology, chemistry, and the rules that dictate what you put on your skin.
To do that, we're digging into the comprehensive guide to skincare products, specifically the brand new update that dropped today from Ingredientsage and Laurent Fabian. This is not some list of influencer picks. It's a real functional breakdown of ingredients and safety data.
What I love about this source is how it frames everything. It treats skincare as healthcare. It talks about, barrier function and lipid layers, not just vanity. It's about the organ itself.
Which is so helpful, because I think most of us buy products based on hope, not science. So let's get into that science. The guide starts with what it calls the workhorses.
Right, or in industry terms, your active ingredients.
I see that on every box. Contains actives. But in a bottle of lotion, isn't everything doing something? What makes an ingredient active?
That's a great question. Think of a skincare product like a car. You got the chassis, the seats, the paint job. That's your base formula. It gives it texture, makes it spreadable, keeps it stable. But the active ingredient is the engine. It's the one component that is biologically active, the one that's chemically changing how your skin functions to get a specific result.
So the moisturizer is the car, but the active is the engine actually driving the change.
Got it. Okay, let's break down these engines by the problems they solve. The most common entry point for people is usually acne and pores.
Right. And the source highlights two heavy hitters here that are often confused: benzoyl peroxide and salicylic acid.
I feel like I've had both of those in my cabinet since I was like 15. Are they basically the same thing?
Not at all. They work on completely different battlefields. Benzoyl peroxide is, it's fundamentally an antimicrobial. Its job is to introduce oxygen into the pore.
Oxygen?
Yeah, and that creates a hostile environment for the C. acnes bacteria because that bacteria is anaerobic.
It hates oxygen, so you're basically waging chemical warfare on the bacteria itself.
Exactly. But here's the massive misconception, and it's about strength. You'll see 2.5%, 5%, and 10% concentrations on the shelf. The instinct is to grab the 10%. Oh, absolutely. If I have a breakout, I want to nuke it from orbit.
And that's the trap. That's where you damage your skin. The clinical data in the guide shows that 2.5% is often just as effective as 10% at killing the bacteria.
Really?
Yeah, but with significantly less irritation, less redness, less dryness. At high concentrations, benzoyl peroxide doesn't just kill bacteria. It can cause oxidative stress to your own skin cells. It just wrecks your moisture barrier.
So that 10% tube is basically just marketing to my panic?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Now, contrast that with salicylic acid. This is a beta-hydroxy acid, a BHA. It doesn't really kill bacteria directly. It's what we call a keratolytic.
Keratolytic. I could break that down for me.
It means it softens and slews off the outer layer of skin. But the superpower of salicylic acid is that it's lipophilic.
It loves oil.
Exactly. It can actually get down through the oil inside your pore and dissolve the gunk, the glue holding dead skin cells together deep down.
So it's a pipe cleaner.
A chemical pipe cleaner, exactly. So benzoyl peroxide handles the infection, salicylic acid handles the clog.
That one distinction changes everything.
Okay, let's pivot to the other huge category, renewal and anti-aging. This is where the guide really focuses on retinoids.
The gold standard. I mean, if you talk to any dermatologist, retinoids are the one thing they almost all agree on. The mechanism here is just acceleration.
Acceleration of what?
Cell turnover. As we age, that process slows down. Retinoids basically hit the fast-forward button on cell regeneration and also support collagen production.
So it forces your skin to act younger.
It does.
Like-
But because you're artificially speeding things up, there's a let's call it a tax you have to pay in terms of tolerance. You can't just slap a high-strength retinoid on your face every night from day one.
The source calls it a retinization period. Is that the peeling and redness everyone talks about?
Yes, your skin literally needs to build more retinoid receptors to handle the signal. The guide suggests a start low and go slow strategy. Use it every third night, maybe, or even use the sandwich method.
Moisturizer than retinol, then more moisturizer.
Yeah, exactly. To buffer the absorption and reduce irritation. And there's a huge warning in here about the sun.
Non-negotiable.
Yeah.
It is absolutely non-negotiable. You're bringing fresh, new skin cells to the surface faster. Those cells are incredibly vulnerable to UV damage.
Huh.
Using retinoids without sunscreen is, it's actually worse than doing nothing at all. You're accelerating the very damage you're trying to prevent.
Wow, okay. We have to talk about sunscreen in a minute, but first, barrier support. I feel like repairing the barrier is the trendiest phrase of 2026. And the ingredient that's everywhere is niacinamide.
It's ubiquitous for a very good reason. Niacinamide, or vitamin B3, is kind of the diplomat of skincare ingredients. It gets along with almost everything.
I'm mad, I like that.
It's an anti-inflammatory, it helps your skin produce its own ceramides, and it helps regulate sebum or oil production.
So it calms things down and stops you from getting too greasy.
It creates balance, and it's generally non-irritating. But the guide does note this trend of brands pushing like 20% niacinamide serums.
Which brings us back to the more is better fallacy.
Exactly. The clinical range is usually between 2% and 5%, maybe up to 10%. Anything above that, you're just increasing the risk of irritation for really no added benefit.
Speaking of delicate ingredients, let's talk vitamin C. This is everyone's go-to for brightening, but the source describes it as a bit of a diva.
It is incredibly high maintenance. Specifically, we're talking about L-ascorbic acid. It's a fantastic antioxidant. It basically sacrifices itself to neutralize free radicals from pollution and UV rays.
Good.
But it's terribly unstable. It oxidizes in the presence of light, air, or heat. If your expensive vitamin C serum has turned dark orange or brown,
It's gone bad.
it's essentially rusty water. It's
Yeah.
useless. And it only works at a very specific, very acidic pH. The formula and the packaging are everything.
So you want those airtight, opaque bottles.
The airless comps are ideal. If it's in a clear dropper bottle sitting on a sunny shelf, just save your money.
Okay, one more barrier ingredient before we move on. Ceramides. This is always marketed for dry skin.
Well, think of your skin like a brick wall. The skin cells are the bricks.
And the ceramides are the mortar holding it all together.
Exactly. They are essential lipids that form that mortar. If you don't have enough, the wall gets cracks. Water gets out, irritants get in. That's a compromised barrier. Ceramide products are literally just patching the holes in the wall.
Let's wrap up the actives with the most critical one, sunscreen. The guide distinguishes between chemical and physical filters, and I think that still confuses people.
It's a common point of confusion, for sure. So physical or mineral filters, think zinc oxide, titanium dioxide, they mostly sit on top of the skin and reflect or scatter UV rays, like a mirror.
The ones that can leave a white cast.
Right. Great for sensitive skin, but they can be chalky. Chemical filters, on the other hand, like avobenzone, they absorb UV energy and convert it into a tiny amount of harmless heat. They tend to be thinner, more invisible.
So which one is better?
The guide is very clear on this. The best one is the one you will actually wear, and wear generously every single day.
Okay, so we've got the toolbox, we've got the acids, the vitamins, the shields. But if I just bought all of these and slathered them on my face, I'd probably have a very bad time.
You would definitely compromise your barrier, yes.
So let's talk about the protocol. How do you actually build a routine? I love that the source material really simplifies this.
It does. It pulls us way back from that 10-step routine trend. The science points to a core routine of just 3 steps. Cleanse, moisturize, protect.
Cleanse, moisturize, protect. That's it. Anything else is just a bonus.
Anything else is a targeted treatment for a specific issue. But that base, that core routine, has to be solid first.
Okay, so if I am adding those targeted steps like a serum, the guide has this rule for application order, thin to thick. Is that just about how it feels, or is there some physics to it?
Oh, there's physics. It's about molecular weight. Water-based products, like serums, have smaller molecules. They need to go on first to penetrate the skin. If you put a heavy cream or an oil on first,
You've put up a barricade.
you've put up a barricade. Exactly.
Okay.
That watery serum is just going to sit on top of the oil and do nothing. It will never touch your skin cells. So watery liquids, then gels, then creams, then oils,
Oh.
and sunscreen.
Always last.
Always the absolute last step in the daytime. It's your armor. You don't put your armor on under your clothes.
Great analogy. Okay, I have to ask about the patch test recommendation. The guide says test a product for 24 to 48 hours on your neck or arm. Be honest, does anyone actually do this?
Almost no one does, and it makes dermatologists weep. It requires delayed gratification. But think about it this way.
Yeah.
If you're allergic to some preservative in that fancy new cream, would you rather have a small red spot behind your ear or a face that's swollen shut?
Okay, when you put it that way, it seems worth it. And what about the one at a time rule?
This is so crucial for troubleshooting.
Hmm.
If you start 5 new products on Monday and by Wednesday you're breaking out, you have zero data. You don't know who the culprit is.
You have to isolate the variable.
Yes, introduce one new thing every 2 weeks. It's tedious, but it's the only scientific way to do it.
Speaking of time, how long until I actually see results? The evaluation timeline in the source is a real reality check.
It is. Marketing says overnight results, but biology says 4 to 8 weeks. Your skin cells take about 28 days just to turn over. To see a real change in pigment or texture, you need to go through at least 1 or 2 of those full cycles.
So giving up after a week means you haven't really tested it at all.
You've only tested it for irritation, not for efficacy.
That's a great transition to how we judge these products. The guide lists the framework: efficacy, safety, concentration, and transparency. I want to drill down on that last one, transparency and regulation, because the 2026 update has this startling comparison between the US and the EU.
It's a study in 2 completely different philosophies. In the United States, under the FDA, the cosmetics industry is largely on a post-market regulatory system.
Meaning the government only gets involved after people start complaining.
Essentially, yes. Companies are responsible for their own safety testing, but they don't have to submit that data to the FDA for approval before a product launches.
And the EU.
The European Union operates on the precautionary principle. Their cosmetics regulation is incredibly strict. You have to conduct a full safety assessment and register the product on a government portal before it can ever be sold.
The source mentions the EU has banned over 1,300 ingredients. In the US, it's, what, a dozen?
It's around that, yeah.
Yeah.
The EU approach is basically guilty until proven safe, where the US is more innocent until proven harmful.
This leads right into labeling. The guide talks about INCI, the International Nomenclature of Cosmetic Ingredients.
INCI is the Rosetta Stone. It is the standardized scientific name for every ingredient. Marketing can call something moonlight nectar, but the INCI list has to say glycerin.
So if I learn the INCI names, I can completely ignore the front of the bottle.
You can bypass the marketing entirely. And you have to look at the order. Ingredients are listed from highest concentration to lowest.
The first 5 rule.
That's it. The first 5 ingredients usually make up 80% or more of the product. Yeah. If a brand is hyping some rare orchid extract, but it's listed after the preservative that's only used at 1%.
Then there's barely any of it in there. It's just fairy dust.
It's just fairy dust for the marketing story.
That is so powerful. Okay, let's look at the macro trends for 2024 to 2026. We have to talk about clean beauty. This term is everywhere, and yet it seems to mean absolutely nothing.
It's the ultimate buzzword. The guide points out that clean has no legal definition. For one brand, it means natural. For another, it means synthetic but safe. For a third, it just means no parabens.
It feels like it relies on fear. Free from chemicals, which is absurd. Water is a chemical.
Everything is a chemical. The shift we're seeing, according to the guide, is away from vague, clean claims and towards clinical transparency. Consumers are getting smarter. They don't just want to know this. They want to know what is in it and why.
Sustainability is also getting more sophisticated. It's not just about recyclable boxes anymore. The source highlights waterless formulations. Why is that a sustainability issue?
Think about the supply chain. A typical lotion is 70, maybe 80% water. That means we are shipping massive, heavy vats of mostly water all around the world, burning fossil fuels to do it.
When we could just ship the concentrate and add the water at home.
Exactly. Solid bars, powders, balms. It dramatically reduces the carbon footprint, the packaging waste. And a side benefit is, if you remove the water, you often need fewer preservatives.
So it's better for the planet and potentially better for your skin.
It's a win-win if consumers are willing to change their habits.
Finally, the guide mentions the rise of evidence-based claims.
We're moving into an era where claims need receipts. You can't just say reduces wrinkles anymore. You need to show third-party clinical trials. Certifications like Leaping Bunny for cruelty-free or Cosmos for organic are becoming the baseline.
So the Wild West days of skincare might be slowly coming to an end.
I think we're moving toward a more regulated, data-driven future. The new luxury isn't the gold packaging, it's the transparent supply chain.
So, to recap, We've decoded the active ingredients, the engines. We've built a routine based on physics, thin to thick. And we've looked at the global landscape that determines what's safe.
It's a journey from the molecule all the way to the market.
If someone takes away just one thing from this deep dive, what should it be?
That knowledge is your single best skincare ingredient. You don't need a 10-step routine or the most expensive bottle. You just need to understand your own biology and choose the few workhorses that support it.
Chase the mechanism, not the hype.
Chase the mechanism. And remember, this is a long game. It's health maintenance, not a magic trick.
Okay, here's a thought to leave you with. We just talked about how clean has no real definition and how marketing can hide what's really in the bottle. So tonight, when you're in your bathroom, I want you to open your cabinet, pick up your 3 favorite products, ignore the front label completely, turn them over and just read the first 5 ingredients on that INCI list. And ask yourself, am I paying for the active engine or am I just paying for the paint job?
That is the ultimate question.
Go check those labels. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
Stay curious.